Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Keeping It Real on Purpose, and I am your host, Edna White. In this powerful episode, we're going to sit down with Linda, and I hope I don't destroy her last name, Drattell, survivor, author, advocate, and warrior. From escaping a terror attack in France to navigating life after hearing loss and embracing the challenges of raising adopted children facing social stigma, Linda shares her raw truth about trauma, PTSD, and self worth. We dive into the second arrow of pain we inflict on ourselves by revisiting trauma and how to break free. This conversation is not one to be missed. And I'd like you all to welcome today to Keeping It Real on Purpose, Linda.
Thank you very much for having me, Edna. I appreciate the opportunity to chat.
Awesome. So tell me how you show up in the world.
So generally, I lost my hearing in my 30s. We're not sure why. It might be genetic. They never found a reason, but I did lose my hearing when my children were very young, and my children are adopted from Colombia, Bogota, Colombia, and I guess I had my first feeling of ostracism when I adopted them because they were from a different country,
Ooh, that's
and
good.
they were considered different. We were considered different for just generally having adopted children. Um,
Mm,
People had to get around that issue, and so we dealt with that for a number of years in different situations. And then I just gradually lost my hearing, and that was difficult because I had to relearn how to navigate social situations, even in the family, how to communicate. And now I'm classified as deaf, and I learned sign language. I worked for a number of years for a deaf organization. I became an advocate for the hard of hearing and late deafened, and I actually eventually established my own uh, advocacy nonprofit organization, and it closed down during COVID. But I did that for a
mhm.
couple of years. And my husband is an attorney, and he worked for a company and was transferred for 6 months to London. And so we went there for 6 months. And before he left, we decided to go and have a vacation in France. And that's how we wound up in Nice during the terror attack that happened on
Right,
Bastille Day
right.
on, I think it was July 16th. Now I can't even remember the date. Um, I wrote it down and I wrote a poem about it so that I wouldn't have to remember. And if I want to
Mhm.
remember, I write it down and I take a look and say, oh, yeah, okay, now
Okay.
it comes
All
back
right.
to me. But anyway, I started writing poetry um, to deal with issues of trauma, to deal with my hearing loss, to just deal with a lot of different
That's good.
situations.
Excellent.
And I had a horse for 34. Well, he was 34. I had him for 29 years, and I had
Mm,
goats. And as they aged, and I had to deal with aging situations and
right.
barn managers that didn't think they were worth keeping around. That was stressful and traumatic. And
Right.
so I wrote poems about that. So
That's
poetry
good.
really helped me in a lot of different situations.
That's good. Awesome. Awesome. I know, for you audience, Linda is using a teleprompter. So that's why you hear or you hear a big gap between us is she's using a teleprompter. And I applaud you so much for doing that. Because I just found that out just now. Just now. So I just applaud you for that, Linda. You talk about the second arrow. the pain we cause ourselves by replaying trauma. How do we stop throwing that second arrow when our minds keep pulling us back into the pain?
Well, it was interesting. We when we came back from France, my husband actually had two colleagues from work who had been in a terror attack in India, and one of them had seen a post-traumatic stress disorder therapist, and one had not.
Right,
And the one who had recovered
right.
rapidly from the trauma, and the one who hadn't suffered for years. And so she said, the one who attended, who saw the therapist, she said, "You must see a PTSD therapist." And
Mm-hmm.
so we did. And we went to see this guy, and I wrote about him in the poem. Um, when we went to see him, he didn't want to hear about the what happened. He wanted to talk
Wow.
about soccer and sports and who was your favorite team. And he and my
Right,
husband were
right.
laughing. And I'm sitting there, scratching my head, like, what the heck? Let's talk about what happened. And he's like, no, no, no,
Right.
and he's like talking
Yeah.
about everything else. And finally he said, if you keep thinking about what
Mm,
happened to you is a
that's good.
gravel road in your brain. You
Yeah.
keep talking about it and it becomes an asphalt road. And then it
Oh,
becomes a
that's good.
2-lane highway. And then it becomes
That's,
a 4-lane highway. Then it becomes a
oh,
freeway. And it just gets bigger and bigger, and it really messes you up. He says, what you've got to do is not think about it, because like the Buddhist parable, there's the pain of the second arrow. The first
mm,
arrow is the trauma that happens to you. The second
right.
arrow is what we inflict on ourselves.
Yes.
And it's what we do by revisiting the trauma again and again.
Mm,
So, what you have to do is think about other things. And that's what he was trying to do in therapy, is have us steer away from what happened and think about other things and make us laugh and talk about things that were positive.
right.
So that's what we try to do. And actually, I will show you a couple things. This is the book that I wrote, Remember This Day, that has the
Mm-hmm.
poem. And these are very serious poems about different traumas that I either experienced or I witnessed.
Right.
This book is a book of funny poems called The Lighter Side of Horse Manure. And this is when I learned to laugh. And these are funny poems that just laugh at
Mm-hmm.
life. And then this book is Who Wants to Be Friends with a Dragon? And
Mm-hmm.
I co-wrote this with my Spanish tutor, Eve Marie Little. And both of us, when we felt like we didn't fit in, because me with my hearing loss and she's half Mexican, and sometimes we just didn't feel like we fit in everywhere. And this is a funny book that laughs at the whole situation and learns
Mm-hmm.
how, no, what makes you different, makes you special. And those are special skills you have that somebody else appreciates. So that's
That's nice.
you, how I learned to deal with the second arrow.
Absolutely. That's good. So after surviving, I know you talked about this, but after surviving a terror attack, many people never talk about the raw, ugly parts of healing. What's something nobody prepares you for when you survive a trauma like that?
Well, one thing is it's very difficult to listen to the news.
Mm.
A lot of people can justify what happens to someone else, the enemy,
Mm-hmm.
the other side, those
Mm-hmm.
people, and
Mm-hmm.
just write it off and say, well, they deserved it, or,
Right.
well, it's not us. But when you go through something like that and you see how indiscriminate terror is, um, there's no way you can do that.
Yeah.
We cry at the news, and it doesn't matter who it's done to. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
matter. Um, for example, we're Jewish, and we
Mm-hmm.
cry for Jews who are hurt. We cry for Palestinians who are hurt. We cry for what's
Right.
happening in Gaza. We cry for what's happening in Ukraine. We cry for
Mm,
what's happening anywhere in the world because there are innocent people who are being destroyed and being torn apart. And it's it's so unfair. It's so hurtful when you see a
right.
baby who has been run over by a truck and it's um, the carrot was in smashed. I mean, we had to walk by that, and we had to walk
Hmm.
by a teenager whose body is covered by a tablecloth and his bicycle crushed. I mean, there's no way you can sit there and listen to the news and just turn away. I'm sorry. You could just turn away and say, that doesn't affect me, it's them, or God
Hmm.
wills. God
Right.
doesn't will something like that.
No. Mm-mm. Not at all. Thank you for sharing that very hard part of your life. Losing your hearing in adulthood changes everything: social life, work, identity. What was the hardest lie you told yourself during that isolation, and how did you break free?
Well, the hardest part was feeling like I wasn't worth anything.
Mm.
People start treating you like a child. You can't
Mm-hmm.
understand conversations, and it's very
Mm-hmm.
common for people to say, hold on,
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you in a minute. Well, we'll let you know. And um, they'll summarize later. And it's like you just
Uh-huh.
stand there and it's like you're worth nothing. And
Right.
it's so hurtful. And you want to know now, just like anybody else would want to know now.
Mm.
Well, what's the joke? So repeat it.
Right.
And they say, well, it loses something in the repetition. And you say,
Right.
but it's not a repetition for me. I'm fine. If I understand, I'm hearing
Mm.
it for the first time. So what happened for me was when I went to the local community college and learned sign language, I also met members of the deaf community. And it
Mm-hmm.
was wonderful because I learned how to self advocate. I was
Right.
welcomed with open arms. And yeah, it's true. A lot of people in the deaf community might be standoffish, but there are a lot of
Mhm.
people that are very welcoming and they make you feel like you have worth and they help you understand, they teach you the slang, and suddenly
Gotcha.
you're part of a group again. And
Mm-hmm.
I learned enough sign language to use an interpreter. So
Okay.
I was able to be part of the community. I was able to join conferences and things again with an interpreter, and it was a lot of fun. I advocated for captioning in movie theaters. And
Okay.
uh,
Nice.
I was one of two plaintiffs for
Right.
captioning against Cinemark theaters and AMC
Okay.
theaters. And we
AMC.
sued them.
Wow. Wow. That's pretty
And
cool.
we didn't have to go to court. They agreed. And so that was a wonderful thing because I used to go to the local Blackhawk theater with my husband. We used to watch movies and then we'd go out to dinner. And then suddenly I couldn't do it anymore. And once
Mm-hmm.
they agreed and we had an arrangement with a company called Do Re Mi um, that created captioning devices, after all that was put together, I
Mm-hmm.
went back to Black Hawk Theater, which was run by Cinemark, and I sat down, I watched my movie, and went to dinner with my husband again. And it was awesome.
Wow.
It
Wow.
was just
Such
so great.
resourcefulness. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
You're just
and
really
and
showing us
we presented
how
a
things
demand
are.
letter to AMC.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, you can do things.
Yeah, you can. You can. So good. Well, you're so resourceful. I love it. And that's what it takes for anything that we're going through is resilience. Yes, you go there, or yes, you feel that, or yes, it's happening, but the resilience we have, and we ought to applaud ourselves when we have that resilience like you.
I'm currently the executive secretary on the board for Ability Central
Wow.
Philanthropy, and they provide funding for a number of organizations that
Okay.
support local communities, like for a
Mhm.
variety of different disabilities, not just deaf, but also, just cognitive or physical, wheelchair, you name it. And
Mhm.
it used to be California Communication Access Foundation, and
Mhm.
it combined now, and it's now Ability Central Foundation uh, Philanthropy.
Right.
So
Okay.
I'm very proud to be part of that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. You've become an advocate for the hard of hearing and late deafened community. What's the biggest misconception that keeps people with disabilities from thriving? And what's your message to anyone feeling invisible or sidelined?
The biggest misconception is that people with disabilities or who are deaf or hard of hearing can't contribute to society.
Hmm.
That's the biggest misconception.
Right.
They look at somebody and they assume, and they get that, for example, from Trump when he was first running for
Right.
office, and he mimicked a reporter that had disabilities.
Yeah. I
You think
remember
that
that. Yeah.
someone that has a disability has nothing to offer, but these people are brilliant, just as brilliant as anybody else.
Hmm. Hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. So you've raised some beautiful children, your adopted children who were treated different, and can expose parents to harsh judgment and social bias. How do you hold your family together or held them together during these hard times and these pressures?
We've always been a very tight knit family, and our daughter is getting married in September. We live in California, and
Hmm.
she lives in. Our daughter lives in Colorado. So
Okay.
actually, we're in the middle of a move. We're going to move to Colorado now that she's settled, and our son
Okay.
lives in South Carolina. So he's
Okay.
going to move now to Colorado. So we're all getting closer to each other.
Oh,
But we've just
nice.
been, I don't know, very, very close. We have a
Yeah.
WhatsApp conversation group, and we're constantly
Mhm.
ribbing each other. Sarcasm is our love language.
As is ours. I think that's every family, and that's lovely. I love to hear that. I love to hear that. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with the audience, especially around anything about trauma or any of
Um,
your experiences?
we um, we have always been extremely open about their adoption, and
Mhm.
provided whatever information they wanted to have access to. And we took a trip with them to Colombia to visit the
Mhm.
orphanage where we adopted them from. And actually, our son's birth family found him and reached out to him. So he has been in communication with them, and we've supported that. Um, but I don't know. They've always considered us their primary family, and just
Mhm.
we've just been open to whatever they've wanted. Um, I don't know. It's just been tight, like families are tight, and families are
Mhm.
created in a lot of different ways.
Okay. So, where do you see yourself going in the near future that you can share with the audience?
Well, I've written a full-length novel that I hope to get published, so I'm in the process of doing that, and it's about a young immigrant woman who comes to this country and marries
Mhm.
someone and lands in a upwardly mobile white picket fence neighborhood and throws everybody off, and they're not willing to accept her, and she does all kinds of crazy things to try to be accepted, and the more she does, the more they don't accept her, and she finds in her process of trying to be accepted, she builds her own community that becomes very successful.
Oh, nice. Well, we're going to be looking for that this coming fall, maybe? Is it coming this fall?
I hope, fingers crossed. I've sent it out to a number of publishers, so we'll see.
Okay. All right. Well, audience, we really hope that you take away something that Linda has said today. This is really a deep conversation and it's really needed. And let you know that you're not alone. If you look in the comment section of the content section of the video of the audio that you're going to see or hear, please reach out to Linda, ask her any questions you may. But I think that we have gotten just about our all the information that we really need, or we've been talking to her, and we want to thank you for being so real and so with us today. Your story is a masterclass of resilience and self advocacy. For everyone listening, remember that trauma doesn't have to be your life sentence. And the second arrow is a choice you can refuse. If you're someone you love or struggle with trauma, reach out to Linda. Reach out to her. Her information, it will be on the video. And she's at Linda, Drattell. Okay? Her advocacy and writings are real lights in the darkness. Thank you for tuning in to Keeping It Real on Purpose, where real conversations lead to real breakthroughs. Stay strong, stay real, and keep living on purpose. Bye for now.
Yes, and do you have my website address? They can reach
Yes,
out to me through that. Okay.
yes, absolutely.
Thank you so much.